The Montgomery Bus Boycott. This is a part of history involving passive non-violent resistance in the 1950s in the southern states of America, particularly Alabama, where actions were taken to combat racial inequality, which was the beginning of better social changes regarding inclusion and diversity. It's where people suffered harsh treatment and were treated as second-class citizens, but campaigned for change. This is the history of the Montgomery Bus Boycott and Rosa Parks. In the late 19th century, the local laws in the southern states of the USA were introduced, the segregation of black and white people. The ruling was called the Jim Crow's Law, named as a pejorative term for African Americans, pejorative meaning contempt or disapproval. These laws would in part remain in many states until their overturning in 1965. That withstanding, attitudes took longer to reform. Before the bus boycott, part of the mandate was the segregation of races travelling on the Montgomery buses in the state of Alabama. This meant that seats were allocated separately for both black and white people. This is how it went. Black passengers were to occupy the 10 rear seats and the white people would take the front 10. The middle seats were for all races, but there was to be no people of different races ever sitting together. The middle seats would occupy all folks, but the bus would fill, and as it did, should more white people board, any African American or person of colour would have to clear the whole row and stand for the Caucasian passengers to be seated. Even more shockingly, black passengers would enter the bus through the front doors to pay the driver, but were then ordered to leave and re-enter through the rear doors. There were recorded occasions where bus drivers would drive away, leaving paying black passengers stranded. Enter Rosa Parks, born in February 1913. She was a black citizen who had already got involved in organisations of racial unfairness and had been to meetings to discuss a more non-violent movement to improve race relations and put an end to discrimination. Working as a seamstress at the time, she decided to take a bus on her way home. The national bus line driven by James F. Blake arrived, and as Rosa boarded, Blake ordered her to get off and reboard at the rear, but then he left her standing there after she had alighted and just sped off. This wasn't the first time she would have an encounter with Mr. Blake. On December the 1st, 1955, tired and busy, and without noticing much going on around her, with her head full of thoughts of the course she had completed in race relations at the Highlanders Folk School in Tennessee that very day, she took bus number 2857, which was fairly busy. She took a seat in the middle row, you know, the row that wasn't designated for anyone. A few stops further down the line, more people got on, including one white passenger. The driver then shouted out for Rosa to give up her seat, by no other than James Blake, which was the same driver she had already had a bad experience with. She was quoted to have said that she had never noticed when getting on the bus that he was the driver, and should she have done so, she would have never have boarded the bus as to not get involved in any more hassles. Rosa refused to move. It's important to say here that black people were 75% of the revenue for the bus company, as only a quarter of their passengers were white. Bus drivers themselves did as they pleased when it came to bad treatment of African Americans, without any disciplinary action at all, which included overcharging, shortchanging, and even assaults. Although Rosa Parks had not planned this action in advance, she was tired of being discriminated against. Even though the driver's particular action was not part of a mandate by law, it did give bus drivers the authority to assign seating arrangements. The driver called the police and she was arrested and charged on the 5th of December with a fine including court costs of $14. Others had been arrested and charged before this incident, which already came to the attention of activist groups, particularly the one led by Edgar Nixon, a civil rights group leader who was looking for a strong-willed person to contest this type of conviction. To some degree, even Martin Luther King became involved with the guidance of the Montgomery Improvement Association, the MIA. They decided to take action. Nixon was made treasurer of the foundation, and that would be the beginning of a new chapter in history. On the night of Rosa's arrest, the boycott of the buses began with a printed poster asking all black people to boycott the buses. I cannot read the poster out in full, as it has some language which is not appropriate for today. However, this is the gist of it, and it does contain all the facts. The poster more or less states, "Yet another black woman has been arrested for not giving up her seat, and this has to stop. Our community has the right to use buses and sit where they like, and not stand over empty seats without arrest or intimidation. So we need to protest by not using the buses. Otherwise, the arrests will continue. Our raise is 3/4 of the revenue for this bus company. The lady's case comes up on Monday, so on that day we ask you to stay off the buses. If you can take the day off or get to work or school on any other way, you must do this. If you can afford to miss town or school just for that one day, please do. So ladies, children, gentlemen, please do not use the buses on Monday." End of quote. At a meeting the next day that included Mrs. Parks at the local church, a strategy was agreed. 3 main requests for reform was agreed. Courteous treatment for all by all bus drivers. First seated, first served basis. Still, however, blacks at the rear of the bus and white at the front. That the bus company should employ black bus operators in predominantly communities where there were ethnic areas. It was agreed that demanding more diversity would not be accepted by the Montgomery Bus Company, and they did not ask for full integration. The boycott was to begin in the city with local churches promoting publication of leaflets and flyers. Martin Luther King gave a speech, and the majority of the black community agreed to stop using the buses for that day. This did not impress President Hoover one bit, as he tried to do his best to smear King by attempting to find derogatory information about him. He didn't succeed, as the protest showed a success. In his memoirs, Martin Luther King wrote, "A miracle has taken place. People were car sharing, lending their cars to other. White women were taking their domestic staff in their own cars to their workplaces. However, the city attempted to stop insuring drivers who carpooled or car shared to hinder the protest, but the MIA sorted out insurance from another company. It was Lloyd's of London who agreed, yes, known today as Lloyd's Bank. On top of this, taxi drivers were lowering their fares to the boycotters to the same as the rate of the bus fare. The city again tried to intervene by fining taxi operators who charged less than 45 cents per ride. Still, this did not stop the actions. People walked, rode ponies, bicycles, and any cart they could find to make sure that they would not accept Jim Crow's laws. Money was raised by every black church in the land to make sure the campaign could continue, and continue it did. Even shoes were donated to the cause. This was taking off and being recognised nationally, and the bus company was losing money, hand over fist. Anger grew from the white community, with fires being set to houses and churches of the boycotters, and when Martin Luther King's house was attacked, he made a public speech. This is the speech. "If you have weapons, take them home. If you don't have them, please don't go and get them. We cannot solve this problem through retaliatory violence. We must meet violence with non-violence. Remember the words of Jesus. He who lives by the sword shall perish by the sword. We must love our white brothers no matter what they do. We must make them know that we love them. Jesus still cries out in the words that echo across the centuries. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, pray for them that despitefully use you. This is what I must live by. We must meet hate with love. Remember, if I am stopped, this movement will not stop, because God is with the movement. Go home with his glowing faith and his radiant assurance. End of quote. When the police arrested King and many others for causing loss to local businesses, they did not hide. They availed themselves to the authorities and paid their fines. All in the act of what I believe is passive resistance. King himself had a hearty fine of $500 and a suspended prison sentence. Upon being arrested, he stated that he was proud of his crime of joining his people in a non-violent protest of injustice. A women-led group called the Club from Nowhere raised funds throughout, and they were the staple of seeing the protests through to the end. The boycott lasted for 382 days, ending on the 20th of December 1956. And in the most part it was a success. They won the case after going to the Supreme Court. The bus company concurred, stopping segregation. This was a small victory but a significant one, as segregation and discrimination were still rife in many cities at this time. Following this, civil rights movement was much more well known and raised King to national recognition as its leader. Sadly, things were not at all rosy in the aftermath. Gunshots were fired through King's door, people were shot when alighting buses, black men were attacked, and some of the few white people that joined the MIA assisting to help integration were also attacked. This retaliation began very shortly after that minor victory. The violence did slow down, but in other areas segregated communities still had few or no rights, and in some social settings segregation was increased to non-multiracial games, sports and community activities. And sad to say that by 1963 most black people returned to occupying the back seats of the buses. It would take years for change. Rosa Parks moved to another area due to threats and ill health, but she went on to make many achievements in equal rights campaign and is remembered for her brave hard work for diversity and change. Rosa passed away of natural causes in 2005 at the age of 92. The city of Montgomery gave an honour by reserving the front seats of all of their buses with ribbons until her funeral. Join me the next time when we look into the life of Rosa Parks. Thank you for watching.